Good morning to you and yours. Justin Giddings here, the Kickstarter guy. And today I wanted to do a follow-up video to yesterday's video where I talked about how much you can raise through a crowdfunding campaign, and I talked through some parameters and that kind of stuff. But a question popped up, which is, well, what if I have a project then that is too big for crowdfunding? If you remember from that video, I mentioned that at $100,000, Kickstarter has a 0.015% success rate. So that is a 98.5% failure rate at 100K or more. So with numbers like that, you tend to top out around that 50-60 mark. So what happens if you've got a big giant project that crowdfunding, it seems unrealistic that you're going to raise all those funds, okay? Well, can you do a part of it? So one question I often ask prospective clients when they ask me that on their consultation, like, oh, I need 300,000 for this movie, what do I do? I'll often ask, okay, well, what does 20 to 50K get you? Again, knowing that that's kind of the range that most people can crowdfund in sort of a DIY, work ethic-y, elbow grease kind of way, what does 20 to 50 get you? So let's start with that question. Think about your project for a second and just kind of put in that parameters. Is that production? For example, my filmmaking partner and I, we are sort of gearing up for an equity raise and all this kind of stuff for a big project, our first feature next year. And in sort of the meantime, we've been thinking, okay, well, what if we need to crowdfund? And that's been the question. What does 20 to 50K actually unlock for us? And thus, then, is it worth it to do a crowdfunding campaign? So it's that same kind of idea. So another way to think about it, right, if it's not literally a part of the actual project, finishing funds, for example, is a really popular way to crowdfund. You've got all that content from the shoot itself, and then your audience and your people kind of help you finish it, help you go through post and that kind of stuff. The other way to think about it is that, are there any sort of ancillary projects that by crowdfunding those may end up supporting the main idea? So a really easy example is a short film or short concept piece related to the feature that you actually want to shoot. So if the feature is going to cost you $500,000 or $250,000 or even $100,000, which might feel like a lot in terms of crowdfunding, what happens if you do the short? Is there a 3 to 8 minute thing where you can condense some ideas and themes down into a short? Maybe you raise 20K for that. That's a lot easier. You've got an awareness now around the project. You've got an audience that's already paid for sort of the small iteration of it. Maybe they'll pay for the larger iteration. You could even turn around and crowdfund again. Most people's second campaigns are, if they're successful the first time and they deliver on those expectations, those second campaigns, they tend to raise more money because you've kind of gotten over that hump where people, particularly with the first campaign, are kind of like, okay, you have an idea, you have a vision, I don't really know what that means, I want to support you, here's some money. But that second time around, you've already kind of proven a lot of things, and so people are often much more likely to give and give more. So, short film of the idea. Another scenario I see often is web series. Oh, I want to do season 2 of the web series, and it's going to cost me $100,000. And they don't really have much of a viewership for that first time around. So sometimes I even just challenge the idea of, like, really, how is this moving your world forward? That's not always an appropriate question, so I don't want you to feel like that, to take that personally. It's just sometimes part of it is like, okay, your creative ambitions and you're like, I want to do this for a living, and those kind of ambitions. So that might also be part of the question, right? Or the equation. How do those things match up? But if, season 2 is going to cost $200,000 and they haven't quite built an audience yet where that might be justified in terms of viewership, I'll often say, okay, well, what about doing the first 3 episodes? So instead of raising 50K and let's say 10 episodes, instead of raising 50K and throwing 5K in an episode, why not do 3 episodes, like maybe a little mini series or mini arc or a limited season or something like that? Take 50K, now you're having 10 to 20K production values, and see if that doesn't attract an audience and build up the project and that kind of stuff. Because again, if it does, now you have more people that you could possibly turn to for additional episodes or another season or something like that, right? This goes for pilots as well. People want to do like the full 30 to 60 minute pilot. There are some teachings out there that say like Most people aren't going to purchase an independent pilot. What they'll purchase is the idea that the independent pilot shows. So it's like, again, why make a full 1 hour drama pilot if, NBC purchases it, they're going to just reshoot it. So maybe you want to make that short concept piece. Again, just kind of thinking how the project actually fits into other pieces. As I've said in previous videos, passion is so incredibly important. I don't want to squelch your creative drive whatsoever. Every project we've made, people have told us, not great commercially, but good artistically. And then lo and behold, because we know these marketing skills and all this kind of stuff, the artistic stuff gets to be commercially viable. Both of our shorts have gotten distribution, paid distribution. The first one was profitable. Like, you can definitely channel this creativity and those creative ambitions into your stuff. But again, be strategic about how that all fits together. Sort of a different video than what I'm exactly focusing on right now, but you kind of get the idea. Also, think about the alternative media version. So maybe instead of the feature, you do a one-off comic book or graphic novel. Maybe you do. Maybe you want to make a comic book, and so you do the short or the little tiny trailer basically for the thing. I had a game client where we were seriously talking about how one of his stretch goals, because he ended up raising like $200,000 US. He was British, so like, I don't know, 180 pounds or something. But in any case, we were at one point we were kind of throwing around the idea of like, oh, maybe we do a short film as a stretch goal. Like if you've raised 150 but you get to 200, we take that 50K and we make a little short film set in the world of the game, right? So even in your stretch goals, if you're frankly lucky enough and prepared enough for that to become a viability for you, even then you can kind of start playing with what the scope of the project is actually going to end up being. Is kind of the idea. So if you're sitting there and you're going, man, crowdfunding sounds great, but I need $200,000 to do this thing, just sit back and go, okay, well, what does 20 to 50K get me? Is there an alternative media version that could fit? Is there a way for me to boil this down into something that still moves the project forward? Because here's the thing, a successful campaign goes a long way. It's proof. It's proof that you can do it. It's proof that the idea is viable. So imagine if I'm an investor or somebody who is just into film in a major way, and I come along and I see somebody who's put in all the hard work and they've got the passion and they've done the page and the video and the rewards well, and their content is really, really good, and they've put together such a nice presentation of their idea. Well, if I'm actively wanting to support a project or possibly even invest and really take that project to the next level, what better proof for me than a successful crowdfunding campaign? And guys, let me think of the actual number. About 15% of my clients, I'd say total like 20-ish clients or so, have gotten investors from their crowdfunding campaign. I had one client who actually stopped. He was like, hey, we don't need to work together anymore. I started putting my stuff together. I sent out a couple of invites to my Facebook page, and I had a lot of my content up there, and I got an investor. So thank you. we didn't do a campaign because actually that's happened like 2 or 3 times. Because this one person I'm thinking of, like, they got that investor. So I'd rather see you do a successful campaign where you stack all the cards in your favor and let that be the first step in a much larger process than be sort of influenced by the headlines that we see about these big giant campaigns, go for something really, really big and possibly biting off more than you can chew, and then run with that metaphor, choking on it. So if you've got specific questions about this, I'd love to hear them. Again, you can email justin@thekickstarterguy.com. You can leave your comments if you're watching the video in the comments section below. But again, thank you for spending this time with me. I hope this has been helpful. I want to see you succeed in crowdfunding. I think the more creative people that find their own voice and figure out how to articulate that vision, the better, and the more art we get to see. And I know I hear a lot of complaints from my indie friends about like, oh, there's another comic book movie. Don't get me wrong, comic book movies are awesome. There's a place for that. But I think we're seeing in television even, right, like this huge diversity of ideas, and I think it comes from people being brave and taking risks, and crowdfunding can totally help with that. And just through the mere process, of course, if you're getting coaching or something, teach you skills that can help your your vision be articulated. All right. Okay. Hope this helps. Bye.